Amy Palmiero Winters is a long-distance runner. That would be hard work for most people, but Palmiero Winters has a prosthetic leg.
People look at the shape of the foot and assume it has spring. All it does is absorbs the shock when my body pounds down.
Palmiero Winters injured her left leg 16 years ago in a traffic accident. Doctors worked to save the leg, but decided to remove it below the knee. Later, she returned to running, but her replacement leg caused pain. Then she went to A Step Ahead, a prosthetics center that Eric Schaefer founded.
She was running 9 miles an hour on the treadmill for 10 minutes and not even out of breath. And I didn't know what I had there other than, wow, she is some athlete.
And so I told him I want to run 100 miles, and he didn't laugh at me. He didn't think I was crazy. He just looked at me and he's like, all right. He's like, then that's what you'll do.
Palmiero Winters has become a top runner because of legs built at A Step Ahead. She has won many honors, including the Sullivan Award. She often trains at night after her children are asleep. Recently, she won a 200-kilometer race in Arizona. During the day, she works at A Step Ahead, directing sports programs and helping young people like Diego Barcenas.
I want them to know that, the only obstacles we have are the ones that we set for ourselves.
Just really wanted to run again and just do everything a normal kid does. And, I'm on the soccer team and going to try out for the basketball team. So, I'm just trying to just live my life like as if I have my both legs, and I pretty much do.
Not only is he trying out for the teams, he's doing very well at them. He's right up there with the other athletes. And we're not disabled in any way. We're just athletes who compete with prosthetics.
Last summer, Amy Palmiero Winters took part in a race of only 5 kilometers. The event included climbing up and down hills, over barriers, and along walls. She did not win, but said she had fun.
Woo! New York makes them tough!
I'm Barbara Ellie Lax started the Gentle Barn Foundation in California. Her group gives a home to animals it rescued from abuse or in need of care. When recovered, the animals spend time with troubled young people and disabled adults.
I've been here for a while.
Anna Goldbach comes to the Gentle Barn once a week. Caring for animals is said to help people deal with their own problems. Often the animals get months of special care before they can work with people.
This place doesn't work by just hugging cute animals. It's the at-risk kids that have been through abuse and neglect and hardship and being misunderstood. When they come face to face with an animal that has the exact same story, that's the healing element. That's where a kid goes, wow, I'm not alone. There's someone else that shares my story. And if this animal can overcome and is safe here, then I can overcome and be safe in the world. So it's the stories that are healing.
Lax says her volunteers help educate people about abused animals.
And they do so many things. We really count on them for so much. Like I said, all the horses are groomed at 10 o'clock every day, so we've got volunteers that come and groom the horses. We have volunteers that come and take the animals for walks and to eat grass. When we have a special rescue where the animal needs supervision or company, we have volunteers that come and supervise that animal, sometimes round the clock, all through the night.
Janet Becht began volunteering at the Gentle Barn a year ago.
It was my birthday, and I said I'm going to do something special on my birthday. I'm finally going to go. And I didn't even know where it was. It's 4 miles from my house. So it was very close, and I don't know, I just never saw anything like this, and fell in love with the horses. They scare me, but they did. They don't scare me so much anymore.
Donations support the work of the Gentle Barn. Ellie Lax hopes to start gentle barns across the country so other people can have contact with animals and experience the healing. I'm Barbara Clark.
Matthew Martz has always loved music. Matt was a high school student when he formed the Student Symphonic Orchestra of Fairfax. It began with 12 friends from school. One of them was Michelle Bowie.
Matt is one of my very good friends, so I did it as a friend, but also because I love playing the violin.
Michelle likes the orchestra because its members choose the music they will play.
We've played some pop music. We're playing Phantom of the Opera. We're playing John Williams, who's a famous composer who did like Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Superman, in addition to the classical music.
Lizzie Culbertson plays French horn.
It has a really, really versatile sound, first of all. I can do so many things with it. Like, it can be really pretty, or it can be really angry, and it can go high or low. And
the Student Symphonic Orchestra now has more than 30 members, including Nicholas Black. He likes the group because its music is more difficult than what he plays for his school orchestra.
The music here is much more complicated. It's a lot harder, but I think that's partly because it's also with woodwinds and brass and basically with a band. At school, it's just strings. We don't have a complete orchestra or anything.
13-year-old Kanika Sahi is the youngest member.
They just show me how to be better, different techniques of playing, stuff like that.
Matt Martz says having musicians of different ages and abilities is not a problem.
If they're a player who hasn't been playing for very long, I try to keep them next to the section player, or leader, as we'd call it, that has been playing a while, so that they can, always ask a question and say, hey, I don't know what this, I don't know what that means. Or
Matt is now in college, where he studies music. But he returns to the Washington area and works with the orchestra every weekend.
This experience is teaching me, how to more or less teach teenagers how to say, okay, we're having a problem with this section. Let's clap it. Let's sing it.
The orchestra is a not-for-profit group. Any donations pay for things like sheet music.
Our first concert, we made $1,100, which was fantastic. That helped pay for a lot of the music that we had purchased. And then this last concert in January, we made over $1,500, which was just incredible.
Matt Martz says he hopes the orchestra will continue to grow and present a wider mix of music. I'm Mario Ritter.
The Consumer Electronics Association holds a show every year in Las Vegas. This year, the show offered everything from dancing robots and singer Justin Bieber to ski jumpers wearing some kind of technology. The association's Chris Eli says the direction of electronics is clear.
The shift moving more towards mobile connected devices. We are seeing an incredible amount of energy and products and volume into products such as tablets, smartphones, e-readers.
Senseg spokesman David Rice says his company's tablets feel different.
On the top left, we have Asphalt, which feels very coarse. It turns touchscreens into dynamic tactile interfaces. When you touch them, they touch you back.
This device, the Blast Chiller by LG, can make a canned drink very cold in just 5 minutes. It won an award at the Consumer Electronics Show. So did this table, which is a very large tablet computer.
Donald Walsh is stepping back in time at the National Museum of the United States Navy.
Our job was to maintain and operate the bathyscaphe. the scientists at the Navy lab would decide what kind of research projects we have and what kind of equipment we put on it to make measurements and sampling under the sea.
In 1960, Mr. Walsh was a young Navy lieutenant. He co-piloted a free-diving vehicle called the Trieste to the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean.
What better demonstration of the safety of this platform than to go to the deepest place in the ocean and come back and perfectly intact and in working order.
Mr. Walsh says the Trieste looks a little like a submarine.
Basically, it is an underwater balloon. You've got two parts to it. You've got the balloon here, which is this long cylindrical object, and that's filled with a lighter than water substance, which is aviation gasoline. Oil floats on water. So you get buoyancy or lift. And then beneath the balloon, like a balloon up in the air, you have a cabin for the fragile humans.
There was just enough room for two people, Mr. Walsh and Swiss scientist Jacques Piccard. On January 23, 1960, the Trieste began its historic dive. 9.5 kilometers down, the two men heard something unusual.
So it got our attention, but we didn't know at the time what it was. We just knew that we were still alive and everything was functioning well. All our instruments, indicators said that the dive was progressing just fine.
The sound came from a crack forming in the window. Luckily, it did not leak, and the Trieste arrived in one piece at the deepest point of the Mariana Trench. Until recently, no one had returned to that part of the ocean.
As soon as the sub's back on deck at the end of the dive, and I've had to...
In March, filmmaker and explorer James Cameron reached the Mariana Trench alone in a vessel he designed.
We know very little about the species that live down there. We know very little about the distribution of the biological communities. We don't know how these animals have adapted to living under this unbelievable pressure that exists down there.
Mr. Cameron's dive owes much to the dive a half-century before by the crew of the Trieste. I'm Shirley Griffith.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, go!
A musical program in Oakland, California gives children of Chinese American families a safe place to spend their free time. Sherilyn Chu says the program is for students who might have nothing else to do after school ends for the day.
A lot of our students are what you call, latchkey children, where the parents work long hours in restaurants.
Two of the students are not Chinese. Alejandro Chavez and Tyler Thompson. Neither Alejandro nor Tyler speaks Chinese, but they have become important players in the program's orchestra. She says she saw something special in them.
Music for all students should be fun, but it is a discipline. You have to practice, and both of them were willing to do that.
Tyler Thompson attended a school near his mother's workplace in Oakland's Chinatown neighborhood. There, he learned songs in Chinese from Ms. Chu.
One day he said to me, my mother comes home from work very tired, and I would sing her the songs you teach me, and I'm able to make her feel better. And I said, what a nice kid.
Ms. Chu discovered that Tyler Thompson could sing Chinese opera.
It was a challenge to me at first to actually understand it.
Tyler says it was also hard for some of his Chinese friends to understand why he wanted to sing Chinese opera.
I didn't see any problem with it, but they did. And I know it would probably be the same vice versa if I heard one Asian kid singing some really old school R&B songs. I would just be like, what do you know about that?
Alejandro Chavez has also done well in the program since Ms. Chu discovered him 10 years ago. Alejandro plays an ancient instrument called the sheng.
Just being able to say I play an instrument from ancient China. It's, I have history in my hands.
Alejandro says being part of the orchestra has opened his mind.
Well, it's taught me not to be, Latinos here, white people here, so I'm mixed together, it's like that. And it's really changed my life, really, because if I weren't here, where would I be?
Ms. Chu says she hopes all her students will learn to better understand not just the music, but each other. She also hopes the children will remember everything they have learned after they leave the orchestra. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Adolf Hitler was in serious trouble. Allied forces were attacking from the west. Soviet troops were passing through Poland and moving in from the east. And at home, several German military officials tried to assassinate him.
Get the full story and learn English.
Jason Kenyon loves playing video games, but his parents think he spends too much time with the games. Jason disagrees.
Well, to say the least, they didn't like it very much. They said stop it and focus on a real career.
Jason is one of a growing number of students seeking jobs in the video gaming and technology industry. He attends Montgomery College in the state of Maryland.
When I finish with my bachelor's degree, probably 2 or so years from now, I may be able to find work pretty easily compared to most other industries, so I think I'll have a good future.
Deborah Solomon teaches at the college. Solomon says the federal government is spending millions of dollars on gaming technology to help find and train workers for different agencies.
The future of video gaming is very bright because game technology is bleeding into virtually every other industry, from military to homeland security to healthcare, biotechnology, advertising, even news.
For example, the United States Army developed video games to help young Americans explore careers in the Army. David Versaw is Chief Financial Officer of Will Interactive, a game development company.
It's a great medium to reach people. People and academics are starting to understand the power of gaming. The current state of the economy has slowed things down a little bit here recently, but we're busier now than we ever have been.
Brian Doyle understands the power of gaming. He started an educational video game business called Let Me Think Games.
The millennials and post-millennials learn differently than previous generations, and we need to adapt new methods of teaching them, and video games are one of those methods that have been shown to be very, very effective.
Jen Tonnen found a job with a game development company after studying at Montgomery College.
As a female in the industry, there aren't a lot of us right now, but it is growing.
Experts say companies making serious games will still be only a small part of the industry. But they believe that market share will expand as companies seek out young people who have grown up playing video games.
American cowboys are helping to rebuild Russia's beef cattle industry. Beef production in Russia collapsed after the breakup of the Soviet Union. The reasons? Cattle breeding and herd management programs fell apart, and people ate most of Russia's beef cows. Today, the beef herd in Russia is less than 1% the size of the American herd. Yet, cowboy Darrell Stevenson says Russia has excellent resources.
Tremendous opportunity in this country in terms of the vast resources, tremendous amount of available ground, whether it's tilled or not.
The Black Angus cows seen here were imported last year from Montana. Recently, the cows had their first calves in Russia.
We're helping establish a local beef herd, a regional beef herd, and eventually a national beef herd. And with that comes the sidelines of educating a labor force.
Viktor Korovkin grew up near this farm in Chestakova. He saw outsiders come in and take apart the village's old collective farm. At first, Korovkin worked as a guard at the ranch. Now he is a supervisor. He says the ranch uses modern technology. Some of it is imported, he adds. Ekaterina Semina cares for animals on the ranch. She says Russians have little experience working with beef cattle.
Because it's really, really hard to find good enough people in Russia that can work with beef cattle. Because Russia is world known as dairy country. We have lots of dairy herds, dairy cows, but managing dairy and beef cows is a totally different thing.
More and more investors are traveling to this area, south of Moscow, to see the ranch. Land here does not cost very much compared to many parts of the United States.
We together can show these people that this is not something from the movie, that cowboys really exist, and it's a really hard job, and that's possible to do even in Russia.
And if all goes as planned, people soon will be eating meat from Black Angus raised on this ranch in southern Russia. I'm Steve Ember.